everyone, welcome to Write It While It's Hot. I'm Poppy and I'm here to give you all kinds of tips, tricks and fun to help you along your writing journey. Today we're going to look at writing strong beginnings and really how to hook your reader in your first chapter. I mean, we all know how important first impressions are, and that is especially true with writing. I mean, there's whole communities and books based on analysing the best opening lines in literature. It's really what is going to grab your reader and make them want to sit and read your book. A good way to look at it is kind of like a sales pitch. So why should anyone read your book? Like a good opening sequence will really hook your reader, spark their interest and compel them to keep going. On the other hand, they may skim a few lines, decide it's not for them and just move on. So openings are super important if you really want people to actually read your work. So first, let's understand the purpose of your first chapter. A strong opening should encourage a few things. One, you should grab attention, so engage your readers right away. Number two is set the tone for your story, and your mood in the beginning should really encapsulate the whole atmosphere of your entire book. Number three is to introduce your key characters and to really give your reader a glimpse into your protagonist and their personality. Number four is to establish the setting and also provide a sense of time and place. And number four is to present the conflict or the question. So introduce your problem or your intriguing situation, which is kind of what your story is about or why you're writing your story. So now we understand the purpose, let's explore the effective techniques for writing a strong beginning. The first tip I have is to start in the action. Starting with action is a fantastic way to engage your readers immediately. By plunging them into an exciting moment, it immediately draws them into the action and forces them to care about what's going on in the story. It creates a great sense of urgency as well if you're kind of writing maybe more of a thriller type genre. For example, in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, we are kind of thrown immediately into the investigation, which creates immediate intrigue and really makes us want to figure out what's going on straight away. As I mentioned in the introduction, it's really important to have a powerful first line. For example, some of my favourites are Last Night I Went to Manderley Again by Daphne du Maurier in Rebecca, and It Was a Pleasure to Burn, which is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. Another iconic one is Call Me Ishmael from Moby Dick. It's a simple sentence, but it does so much in terms of drawing the reader in. It's quite intriguing. It makes them have questions, which the only way they're going to have answers to is to read on and find out. So the first line should capture the reader's attention. It's their initial encounter with the story. It sets the tone and creates an immediate impression, and a compelling first line really can hook the reader's curiosity and encourage them to read on. The first line should also establish the voice and style of your work. So it often showcases your personal flair and writing style, which gives the readers a taste of what to expect in your book or story. Many first lines also hint at broader themes that will come up in the narrative. You can straight away introduce important elements or characters that will help ground your reader right away in your narrative. And finally, first lines are super important for creating tension or intrigue. A strong first line will immediately present a question or conflict or mystery that can only be solved by the reader continuing to read your book. Another important thing to do in your first chapter is to introduce relatable characters straight away. If you think about Pride and Prejudice, the Bennets are introduced immediately, which, although Elizabeth Bennet is the protagonist, so it would be expected, it also does a great job at making the reader feel at home in the world that Austen's creating. The Bennets are lovable characters. They can kind of be laughed at as well as sympathised with, and the combination of those emotions will help the reader care for and want to know what happens to these characters, and so they will read on. Readers care about characters more than normally the plot or the structure of your book. So by giving them a character that they can bond with, it will help readers empathise and create a bond with your book as a whole. It's also important to set the tone with descriptive language in your first chapter. Descriptive language will evoke emotions and establish tone in your narrative. For example, the opening in The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson immerses readers in the creepy atmosphere straight away. The novel opens with, "No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under the conditions of absolute reality. Even larks and katydids are supposed by some to dream. Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within. It had stood for 80 years and might stand for 80 more." So this opening really sets a chilling tone, suggesting an eerie, unstable environment, which is obviously later on developed in the novel. It also subtly personifies Hill House as something more than just a building, which again foregrounds the events that will happen in the novel. The next important factor to include in your opening chapter is to pose an intriguing question. Posing a question is one of the best ways to get readers to continue reading, as it will compel them to seek answers. There's very few people I know that will kind of have an unfinished situation or an unanswered question that won't want to know the answer to it. So a great way to get readers to really be immersed and care about your book is to create a question that they will really want to know the answer to, and then they will have to read to figure it out. The opening of A Secret History by Donna Tartt, which I absolutely love, poses a lot of questions. It's really vague and mysterious, the opening, and that's what piques the reader's curiosity. So although you don't straight away know the events or the clear details of what's happened, you know something bad has happened and you want to know what's happened and who was involved. So I really would recommend, kind of, if you're writing or rewriting your first chapter, to think of the central question or conflict in your novel, kind of the plot, what is happening in your story, and then how can you hint at that in your first chapter to hook your readers and to give them a taste of what's to come. Now let's talk about some common mistakes to avoid in your first chapter. Number one is info dumping. This is a real pet peeve of mine, but it is also so easy to do. It's really important to avoid overwhelming your readers with too much backstory. Instead, it's so much better and will work so much better to weave it in naturally, so readers can kind of pick up on little details from what characters are doing and what they say, and kind of the scenery and the world around them, rather than having paragraphs and paragraphs in the opening kind of discussing the intense history or like the backdrop of your world or everything, just because that it won't be interesting for your reader yet, because they have no reason to care about it yet. It might be interesting in chapters 4 and 5 when they have kind of a vague understanding and emotional attachment to the characters, but right off the bat, why would they care? They're going to put the book down. Another one is starting with vague statements or cliches. I think what really draws readers into a book is something original, something they've not seen yet. So if they are reading something that kind of, it could feel familiar, but if they're reading something that like has been overdone, they're going to be way less likely to be interested in it. And the third one is lack of conflict. Now this might be slightly controversial, because I do know a lot of narratives that start off really nice and friendly and kind of the conflict develops further on after the world's been built. But I do think, as a general rule of thumb, some tension or a question that compels the reader is necessary for them to want to keep reading. It's not likely that someone will want to read pages and pages of description, no matter how beautifully it's written, without something going on. So to wrap up, here are kind of the main takeaways for writing a strong beginning. Start with action and a compelling first line. Introduce your relatable characters early on. Use descriptive language to set the mood. Pose an intriguing question or conflict. And avoid common mistakes like info dumping. But yeah, remember, your first chapter is your first impression and your chance to make yourself unforgettable. So don't be afraid to go over and revise it until it's perfect. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. I'm hoping to be posting a lot more on here, so also give your suggestions down below if there's any topic you would like me to cover for these videos. But yeah, happy writing, and I'll see you next time.